Welcome to Undercurrents of Romance, the show that celebrates every subgenre of romantic fiction. In each episode, I peel back the layers of your favorite love stories and chat with the talented authors who bring them to life. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. Now, let's dive in with today's guest. Hello, Romantics. I'm here with Jennifer Hartmann to talk about her new contemporary romance, The Wrong Heart. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Tracy.
Oh yes, you bet. Before we get started talking about your amazing book, I noticed in your bio that you really want to get a dog.
Yes.
When that day comes, what kind are you going to get?
Oh my gosh, I worked with dogs for 15 years before I started, and everyone was like, "What's your favorite breed?" And I just like the mutts. Like I
Yeah.
love the shelter dogs, the ones that are a million different breeds. I do have a soft spot for corgis and golden retrievers if I had to pick something, but I love them all.
Yes, I'm with you. My all of my dogs have always been rescue dogs or dogs that,
Amazing.
a friend couldn't handle, couldn't take
Yes.
anymore or
Yes.
whatever. And they've all been mutts. So they're
Love that.
love the
Yep.
mutts. All right. Well, besides wanting a dog, what else can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so I live in Northern Illinois with my husband and my three children. So I'm very much a homebody. I love staying in and cooking and watching shows with my husband, reading, obviously. I love going for long walks. So that's kind of that's my get out of the house every day is I listen to my music and I go for walks. And yeah, just writing. Writing is really both my career and my favorite hobby. So it works out.
Great. It's lovely when it works out,
It
right?
does, absolutely.
Well, I wanted just to take a moment to lavish praise on your beautiful cover here. Bloom Books,
So,
as I mentioned before we hit the record button, they do just such a nice job. Can you go ahead and while I hold this up and we gaze at it here, can you give us a brief description of the story, please?
yes, The Wrong Heart is an emotional romance, kind of a second chance romance for both characters, finding love in very kind of difficult places. Our main heroine, Melody, loses her husband early in the story. So it's her life after loss and learning to love herself and find love again. And then our hero, Parker, has had a very terrible upbringing. He has suffered a lot as a child, and so he doesn't really know how to love and has never experienced real love. So it's two kind of opposites attract, a little bit of grumpy sunshine, and they meet up in this support group. And there's a little side story going on where Melody is also trying to contact the recipient of her late husband's heart. So there's a bit of a pen pal, situation in there, and then the experience of meeting this other person, Parker, in the support group and connecting.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be real careful because I don't want to give away any spoilers.
I'm terrible at that. I'll just start rambling on, be like, oops.
Yeah, I have been known to put my foot in mouth as well.
For sure.
Yeah, but I really loved how you tied all of that together. It felt so seamless. I don't know what it was like while you were writing it. You might have been pulling your hair out trying to do that, but it felt so seamless as a reader.
Thank you.
Um, it is one of those books that stays with you long after you finish,
I'm so
and
glad.
it definitely has all the feels. And so I know readers are are loving it because I've seen some of the reviews, and those who haven't found it yet will definitely love it. Do you recall what sparked the idea for the story?
Yeah, it's actually really funny because I had watched the movie You've Got Mail, which is a complete opposite vibe of this book. That's a rom com. This is definitely not. But that just kind of sparked the idea of that like communication of not seeing the other person. So that was kind of the main thing that I had thought of. And then for me, stories just take on a new life. And I just got to writing and I thought of this whole other new story to wrap around it. And it turned out to be very kind of emotional and angsty, probably my heaviest book, and it delves a lot into grief. And I was also kind of going through my own grief with losing my mom, and this was
Mm.
it was difficult, but it was also very cathartic to write this book. So I had a very deep connection to it. And it was challenging, but it really just flowed. Like this was one of the books that just kind of spewed out of me, and I wrote it fairly quickly. And I have to say, it is probably my favorite book I've written. And this is now, I have 16 books out now, and this is a little earlier on, and this was 2021, and it still has really kind of taken that first place.
Yeah, yeah, and I wonder if it's that connection with your mom still that
I think
that
so.
really
Yeah.
pulls
Yeah.
it in. That's great. Well, and as you mentioned, it's not a romantic comedy, but there are comedic times in
Mhm.
there. There are funny parts of it, and I really loved that you gave Melody and Parker someone who is supportive in their life. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes books, the characters, they can feel all alone, and they are
Right.
all alone. And I know that they feel that way a little bit at times in the
Mhm.
book, but you've given them such great support system
Thank
to
you.
try and help them get through their trauma. And
Yeah.
they were a fun group of characters. Do you want to talk about them a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's really important, especially in this story, because it is so heavy, that I really wanted to create those layers that kind of brought things, a little lighter sometimes. So yeah, Melody has her best friend and her brother, and they have this little kind of like, thing going on, which adds a little bit of humor. And then Parker didn't have a huge support system, but he had his sister, his foster sister. So that was, I think, his like grounding person that kind of kept him going and kept him, living in the present. And then we have the dog, who is actually based off of one of my foster dogs. So that was really fun to bring him in. I love having animals in all my stories. So yeah, there's in Parker himself. He's grumpy. He kind of has this dry sarcasm about him. So hopefully he brought some humorous moments, even if he maybe didn't need to. But yeah, it's fun to have all those elements that kind of create a full story.
Yeah, even though, like you said, the subject matter was a bit weighty, but those
Hmm.
support group meetings, the way that he would respond to certain things that were said in those support group meetings were
That was
just
fun.
so much fun. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
dog, I forgot his name is slipping my mind right now, but
Walden.
Walden, there you go.
Yes.
Yes, he was such a great character in the
Yeah.
story.
That was
Just
fun because yeah, Parker has this dog and he's also just kind of like grumpy and lonely, and it was fun kind of creating that metamorphosis between them, like that parallel. So when Parker is kind of growing and healing, so is the dog. He's getting his hair back and he's getting more affectionate, and so that was fun to kind of portray.
And that was another amazing tie-in that you did with this whole story is
Thank you.
that the dog even had an arc.
Right,
I
exactly.
don't know that I've ever read a book where the dog had an arc.
Yes.
It was great.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I like to dive into on this show is finding the story's undercurrent with the author. It's what I call that second beating heart of the story, no pun intended
I
at
love
all.
that.
Can you pinpoint maybe what the undercurrent is beneath Melody and Parker's story?
Yeah, this one I think had a lot of layers with the undercurrents. And I really think it is just tackling grief as a human being on your own and finding reasons, even though things can seem very difficult and harrowing and maybe, like you can't feel like you have any way out. But there's always something. There's always something to live for to get you to the other side. And in the story, I call them starting points. And it could be as simple as, the rain falling outside or smelling your favorite flower, a song coming on the radio that resonates. And it's just these little things that make up, I think, the whole canvas of life when you put them all together. And so it's just finding those things along the way. And then when you look back, when you get to the end of the story, like, and you look back at your life and think of how it could have been so different if you didn't keep going. I felt really important to me. So I know the epilogue was a little brutal in some ways, but I felt very passionate about keeping that in there and just showing, you know, just hang in there. Life always gets better. There's always something worth living for. And who knows where you're going to be in a day, in 15 years, in 100 years from now, and looking back on your life and, all the things that you would have missed out on.
Yeah, I have to say that when you finally revealed Parker's starting point, that was a tearjerker. That
Thank
was just
you.
There's so much to love, folks, about this book. I can't wait for those who haven't read it yet to get their hands on it. You've already mentioned second chances and grumpy sunshine as a couple of
Mhm.
tropes that exist in this book that readers would really love. Can you think of any others that pop up for you?
There's a little bit of the pen pal trope in there, and the opposites attract, and just overcoming loss. I think a little bit of found family. I think with especially with Parker. And yeah, I think those are the main ones. And we do have
Yeah.
the grumpy tortured hero, which everybody loves. I think I do.
Yeah, I really loved how you revealed how Bree came into
Yes.
his life.
Mhm.
That was amazing, and their relationship just feels so pure and
Yes.
it's perfect.
Thank you.
I'm just going to gush all through the interview here. I can't help it.
I so appreciate
Um,
that.
Do you have maybe on your do you, I guess what I'm trying to ask is I started to say to be read pile, but didn't make any sense. Is there a romance that you have recently read, not to be
Yes.
read, but recently read that you could recommend and why?
Ooh.
Why?
Oh my gosh, there's so many good books out there. I would say the most recent one that I read and just devoured was The Hills of Shivers and Shadows by Pam Godwin.
Okay.
She is just a goddess when it comes to writing and words. And that story was so layered and so deep. And it's part of a series. That's book one in the series. And it really just keeps you on the edge of your seat. It has everything. So that one's fantastic.
Great. I will definitely add that as one of the links in your show
I
notes.
love that.
I love book recommendations from authors.
Yes,
It expands my repertoire, as you could say, my
absolutely.
reading repertoire. Let's see here. What else did I wanted to ask you about? Oh, what is it about contemporary romance that appeals to you as an author? And what is it that you think that readers, I guess why is it popular with readers right now? Do you
Yeah,
think?
I think it's an escape. I think that there's so much that can be done. I love just taking ordinary characters and throwing them into impossible situations and watching how they get out of that. And you have a lot of leeway with, contemporary romance. And I know you can dive into the fantasy worlds and the paranormal, but there's something about just real people and struggling and finding unique ways to give them new journeys and experiences. And there's so many things you can do with finding love, and my tagline is kind of finding love in hopeless places, and I feel like the harder the journey is, the sweeter that HEA is when you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we see a little bit of your background there. I don't know if that's where you work or if
It
that's your
is.
interview room. It looks really cool back there.
Yeah, this is my office. So this is the interview side, and then I have my little cozy couch because I have to have my blanket and my pillows and just kind of get really comfortable.
Yes, I'm right there with you. Do
Mhm.
you have any rituals or anything like that that helps, I guess, trigger that creative side of your brain to say, "Hey, it's time to write and let's go"?
Yeah, I'm a morning writer, so I pretty much get up and get to it. I get my kids on the bus, I have my coffee, and then I kind of come in here and write. And I think music for me is very inspiring for the muse. So sometimes I'll go for my walk in the morning, listen to music. I can't listen to anything while I'm writing. I have to have like white noise. That's it. But yeah, music ahead of time gets the muse going, the creative juices, and reading also. I feel like reading and writing really go hand in hand. It kind of unlocks that creative part of your brain, and gets me in the zone.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that The Wrong Heart was a little bit of a challenge for you
Mhm.
emotionally because of its connection with your mom and everything.
Right.
Is there any storyline that you have kind of percolating in the back of your mind and you just haven't, um, you just, for whatever reason, haven't gone there yet, where maybe
Yeah.
I know for my own self, I had a book where I just didn't feel like I had the chops to write it yet. I guess
Right.
that's where I'm kind of getting at. Is there anything out there that just makes you a little bit nervous to write yet?
Yeah, I have two stories like that. And I was actually going to finally dive into one of them this time, and I got cold feet again, because it starts very tragically, and it's something that I don't know. I feel like I have to be in the right headspace for it because it's actually a personal trigger of mine for reading, and I don't have many of those. And I'm like, if there's a trigger I have, I should write it and try to, bring something new to it. But yeah, that one's difficult. And then there's another one that I have that I've had on my mind for years, probably since I first started writing, but it does not have an HEA. So I'm very
Ah.
nervous because I've kind of built this brand of tearing you apart and putting you back together again. And if I don't have that putting you back together, I'm very nervous to put that out there and with readers. Like, don't hate me.
Yeah,
Maybe one
I could,
day.
yeah, yeah, I could see why that one would make you a little bit nervous for sure. Well,
Yeah.
I hope you bring those to the surface because I feel like whenever you've got a story that's just kind of nagging you and won't
Yes.
let you go, to me it feels like a story that needs to be told. So I hope
That makes sense.
you
One day, I
eventually get there.
think.
Yeah. All right, Jennifer, before we go, can you give us a hint about what might be up next for you? Do you have any exciting projects that you can tell us about?
Yeah. So my next book coming out with Bloom is in August, and I just had the cover reveal. It was revealed through People Magazine, which was just incredible. It's called Dream On, and I am so excited about this book. It was probably the most enjoyable book I've written from beginning to end. It had some tropes that I have not written before that I really wanted to, which is fake dating. So I'm like, I wanted to take the trope and put my angsty spin on it. So it's a bit of another second chance romance, Hollywood guy, ordinary girl, opposites in every way. And yeah, this one was really fun to write, and it comes out in August. And aside from that, I just started writing my next book for Bloom, and that's not going to be out till early next year. But that has just kind of got the wheels spinning on that. Going to be a bit of a rock star romance. And again, slow burn. All my books are slow burn because I like making you wait for it. And yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
fun.
it sounds great. Well, we can't wait for that one to come out in August.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Well, The Wrong Heart is out now, so be sure
Yay.
to order your copy today. Jennifer, where is the best place for readers to connect with you online?
I'd say I'm most active on Instagram, author.Jennifer Hartmann. I do go on TikTok sometimes, and I have a Facebook group. It's Queen of Hearts, Harts, like my last name. And so I'm in there, I'm pretty active. I love engaging with readers. So, and my website's up, so email me anytime, send a message.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Like I say, I really love this book. Will continue to gush about with everybody who I come in contact with, and it
Thank
was really
you.
great chatting with you about it.
Absolutely. Love being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Undercurrents of Romance. You can find more information about the show at tracydevlyn.com/podcast. Undercurrents of Romance is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'll be back soon with another great romantic read. In the meantime, enjoy the adventure.